Well, hi everyone. Thank you for being here today. I'll try to make it easy for the ones who are still in this call, so we can start thinking about dinner soon. As my peers before, I would like to give a special thanks to Ellen, Sarah, and Kylie, and all the professors at MCAD for being so present in our daily, very personal and academic needs. Also, I would like to welcome Peter Steinek and Maria Jose Castillo as members of my thesis committee. Thank you for joining me in this final part of the road. And of course, I am immensely grateful to have Zachary Keenan as my mentor. I never thought of meeting such an amazing person when I decided to move here to the United States. Finalmente quiero agradecer a Víctor, a mis amigos, a mi familia por su constante apoyo y paciencia durante este año y medio de maestría. I am Jesús. I am a graphic designer. I was born and raised in Lima, Peru in 1990. And in 2021, after 31 years of building a life back there, I decided to move to Minneapolis to extend my educational, professional, and personal opportunities. Leaving my comfort zone and having to experience migration made me enter a spiral of doubts and uncertainties about myself. As I couldn't find myself belonging to my new reality, I love motivation and ways of creating. Additionally, as a graphic designer with mostly client-based experience, my work focused on developing solutions for other people's needs. At the end, it's the client who's paying for a specific way of delivering information or emotions. So the biggest question in that moment was, how is it possible to create a certain amount of artwork that comes from an internal and personal reflection, especially living with so many unanswered questions about belonging, home, identity, and community experiences. But as I mentioned before, we designers seek to find solutions, and design was no different. So I took the main problem, the identity loss, and I went to the root. I began studying Peruvian visual culture and compared the past and the present to find contemporary subjects and build new meanings. The intention in that moment was to kind of mend my distorted present with a more solid and heartwarming cultural heritage. That led me to design a vibrant folklore, a series of posters created by abstract geometry inspired by Peruvian folklore dancing. I took videos of these performances to turn it into stills, then to transform them into abstracts, paper cuts, to finally go into digital editing. The posters were hung from the ceiling, arranged in a way so the viewer could move horizontally, back and forth, turn around, etc. So the audience were physically propelled to dance with the installation to acquire new information. They were coerced to move to understand this body of work about the experience of finding identity through dancing. So then naturally, my work began to intentionally break with the unidirectional way of digesting information and challenge the physicality of a space to actively engage with the audience to, in a way, evoke a new range of feelings and emotions. But this is nothing new, as Peruvian migratory processes have always played a decisive role in shaping the notion of national identity, building on concepts such as race, ethnicity, or class relationships. For example, the Inca Empire is a result of multiple conquests from one culture over another to gain technology and territory and strengthen their society. To later, for example, after the Spanish conquest, the emigration from Europe and the entry of slavery coming from Africa and Asia mostly, marked Peru's racial and social hierarchy as a republic. So let's take this historical premise and we can state that migration has built the foundations of Peruvian notion of identity and allow its cultural expansion beyond physical borders. To contextualize this experience within the art, we can refer to the work that you're seeing right now. It's called The Funerals of Inca Atahualpa. It's a painting from 1870, 1867, sorry, by the Peruvian artist Luis Montero. These famous paintings show the drama of the conquest of Peru by the Spanish crown after the death of the last Inca Atahualpa, using paintings and the techniques styles from the Florentine and French schools, where this author, Luis Montero, was formed academically. However, beyond all the artistic analysis that we can do about the academic guidelines of the mid-19th century painting style, the artist implemented visual semiotic codes of the religious syncretism of Peruvian lands. After the Spanish conquest, the extirpation of idolatry process, it was a process that looks to eradicate the forms of worship of indigenous belief that survived the conquest. These faiths mixed with new concepts coming from Europe and under the new guise, they continue to transmit indigenous messages. During the colony, Andean artists reinterpreted the culture coming from Spain. They assimilate European techniques, adjusting them to indigenous resources and practices. Under Christian covers, Andean myths and rites continue to be present. Also, there are many examples I can show you about this religious syncretism. This is a practical example of how a culture can transcend, mix, be compared, and or coexist through visual expression without a context, in a context that is different from its own nature. However, during all this very long and deep research in history and processes, I kept wondering about other people's migration experiences. How do other people manage their loneliness and isolation when they arrive to a new place? How do people find familiar symbols and situations in their new context when they migrate, by choice or by force? How do people deal with the struggles emerging with the new processes of inclusion or maybe exclusion and the search of belonging? I wanted to explore entanglements between artistic expression and the movement of people. I wanted to explore current trends in artistic and cultural analysis, re-examines and the connections between the stranger and the migrant. For that, I used a concept called migratory aesthetics, developed by Mike Ball, a Dutch cultural theorist, video artist, and professor. In simple words, this theory helps to expose key dynamics in our post-colonial culture other than traditional identity politics. Ball states that the model that we currently have of multiculturalism and representation of diversity only adds to cultural stereotypes in a very static way, when these processes of intercultural interaction do the very, in a way, I would say, philosophic origin of the meaning of migration, must respond to a more dynamic alternative to institutionality and aesthetics. This theory allows us to understand transnational stories as a reinvention of the future. For that reason, I conducted semi-structured interviews to 6 South Americans in Minnesota, one from Peru, Ecuador, Colombia, Paraguay, Uruguay, and Venezuela. The emphasis on the South American region comes from a personal experience where the lack of visibility is not only in American social structures, but also in Latinx spaces in Minnesota. Part of the findings after doing this research is that most of the cultural expressions are just focused on Central America. In coming to an end, the work that will come after this research is done is for people who has no knowledge or not very close to the experiences and processes of transnational migration to the US. And the work also aimed to creating a discussion about Latino identity, focusing on Latin Americans in Minnesota. And a very exciting observation from this new creative process that I developed during this year and a half at the MFA is that migration processes can be compared with the installations that I'm now doing metaphorically. So when we move to one place, we require a physical effort. When we arrive to a new place, we process new information, such a new language, for example. Then we began to operate in this new space while simultaneously being changed by the environment. In a simple comparison, physical action is required to interact with installation. Then the audience receives a quantity of new information that must be interpreted at two levels: the message itself and how this message is living in this new space. Nevertheless, depending on the environmental factors, the meaning or the character of the art could be shaped. The main idea for the thesis project the thesis art exhibition that I'm going to do the next semester will be around designing experiences and elements to first keep up the conversation about the benefits of having a multicultural environment, and second, to create more awareness on the migrant experience, to also create more welcoming spaces. Muchas gracias. So now I'm open to Q&A.
Thank you so much, Jesus. Pleasure to hear you and to see your work. Congratulations. And let's see what questions we have from the audience. We got lots of claps and appreciation. I know one question I read earlier that was presented from Pi on some of your previous presentation was, what do you like about working in books with text format compared to illustration series? I don't think that was for you. Let me see. Okay, here. Victor says, how is language and code switching and the visual experience inform your research?
How is language and code switching? I'm not sure I understand that question. How is language and code switching?
How is language and code switching and the visual experience informing your research? I wonder if there's a specific aspect of, and I might be wrong, Victor, you can correct me if I'm misjudging your question, but I think it has to do with your migration experience really affecting the way you do the research that informs your work. So how does your migration and the fact that, for instance, you have to code switch because of the fact that the language is spoken differently in Minnesota affect the way you do research here in Minnesota versus the way you did research back in Peru?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, makes more sense now. Yeah, definitely the process, especially the design process, changed a lot, because usually I used to work with like in a collaborative space, when you have writers, when you have people who actually kind of help you, or you work together to develop something, to create something. But moving here, being by myself and being this author, start becoming the author of everything, has changed not only the outcome of the work, but also the initial process. I have to kind of overpass the technical experience and the aesthetic one to begin understanding how to create content from its own meaning, being in Spanish or English, or looking for, or be understanding if it's necessary to have a translation, if it's necessary to have or living it in its own nature without anyone understanding that, maybe understanding the new audience and who am I talking to. So yeah, it's this process of language and switching, it's related more to what are the outcomes of the work that I wanted to do.
That makes a lot of sense. I see another one here. Oh, okay. How much do you think your experience as a graphic designer informs your communicational assets, now delving on more personal graphic work?
Oh, thank you, Maria Jose. I think the experience has been is I mean, the experience of as a graphic designer before coming here, it's actually the roots of to help me build a new work. I don't, in a way, I don't worry about the technical aspects of designing or building something. I'm constantly more worried about the content, meaning, and context, the cultural approach that I'm having. Um, yeah, so I think without the experience that I had right now, the new process of researching and developing art will be completely different, and the outcome will be, I know, I don't know what the outcome will be, but yeah.
Okay, thank you, Jesus. Let's do one more. How do you think working in formats other than visual design, which is the one you're familiar with, help with your concept?
Other formats, like
maybe dance, I'm assuming.
like performance, like literally performances and other art expressions. I mean, I that's something that I constantly thinking about it, because most of my work is based on folklore expressions of performances. So I wonder, what if I actually integrate that part, like literally in the work, but it's actually really hard because as I'm talking, we're in Minnesota, so having people who knows exactly how to dance certain dances, how to move with certain dances, or how to perform a specific, I don't know, artistic expression. It's very hard to find them here. I don't know if I have personally the experience or the interest to dance myself. So I don't think I'm gonna be part of these performances. But I in general think that's a constant, I don't know, like a constant statement in my mind all the time. How else can I express something? How can I keep pushing the experiential approach to my work, and not necessarily just visual? That's why I kind of try to make installations now, to have different options of view and understanding.
Well, thank you so much, Jesus. This is our time for the day. It was wonderful to hear from you. Congratulations again on your hard work. Best of luck with your future endeavors.